The dust hung thick in the air as Daeho brushed away another layer of ancient sediment. His 6 arms worked carefully, each movement precise. He had been an archaeologist for 40 years, but nothing compared to this. The structure before him rose from the dead planet's surface like a metal mountain, its surface covered in symbols that matched no known language in the galactic database. "Professor, you need to see this," his assistant called from inside the entrance. Daeho climbed down from his scaffold and walked through the massive doorway. The metal walls around him hummed with a faint energy, something that should have been impossible after thousands of years. Inside, the chamber stretched far beyond what their scans had suggested. Lights flickered to life as they walked, responding to their presence. In the center stood a massive column covered in glowing symbols. Daeho approached it slowly, his translator implant struggling to make sense of the markings. "It's recognizing patterns," he muttered. "These symbols, they're related to all coalition languages, like they're the parent language." His heart beat faster. If true, this discovery would rewrite everything they knew about galactic history. Across the galaxy, on a farming colony called Haven's Edge, Hana wiped sweat from her forehead. The twin suns beat down on the fields where she worked alongside a dozen other species. She kept her head down, her modified appearance hiding the truth. Humans were worth more dead than alive these days. Their DNA fetched millions on the black market. Their bodies ended up in research labs, studied like ancient insects trapped in amber. "Hana,
Come quick!"
her brother Tae-min ran toward her, his youthful face flushed with worry. "It's Jiwoo. He's asking for you." They rushed back to the small settlement, to the underground chamber where the oldest humans lived in hiding. Jiwoo lay on his bed, his breathing shallow. At 93, he was one of the last who remembered the old world before the fall. "Child," he whispered as Hana knelt beside him. "It's time you knew the truth." His wrinkled hand pressed something small and cold into her palm. A data chip, ancient and worn. The Coalition didn't just defeat us. They hunted us, exterminated us, and we never fought back. "Why?" Hana asked, tears streaming down her face. "Because we were better than that," Jiwoo said, a sad smile crossing his lips. "We built the roads they travel. We gave them the stars, and they repaid us with genocide." He coughed, his body shaking. "That chip has coordinates. A place where the truth still exists. Promise me you'll go. Promise me you'll learn what we really were." Hana promised, holding the old man's hand until his breathing stopped. 2 weeks later, Daeho's discovery hit the galactic news networks. Images of the ancient structure spread across every screen in Coalition space. The academic world erupted in debate. Some called it the find of the millennium. Others demanded the site be sealed and studied carefully. But the Coalition government moved faster than anyone expected. Within hours, military vessels surrounded the planet, and all civilian access was denied. But Daeho had made copies. He worked through the night in his small apartment, translating the symbols. The patterns became clearer. These weren't just related to modern languages. They were the foundation. Every species in the Coalition spoke languages derived from this ancient tongue. His translator implant finally cracked the code, and the first translated text appeared on his screen. He read it 3 times, unable to believe what he was seeing. Humanity Central Command Station Theta 7, Administrative Hub for Sectors 447 through 523. Warning: unauthorized access prohibited. This facility contains restricted technology beyond current galactic safety protocols. Humanity. The word sent a chill through his body. Humans were myths. Cautionary tales told to children about pride and extinction. They supposedly destroyed themselves in some ancient war. But this facility suggested something else entirely. The technology here was impossibly advanced. If humans had built this, they had been far more powerful than any current civilization. Hana stood in the resistance meeting. 12 other humans gathered in the hidden basement. Kyung-soo, their leader, was a hard man with scars crossing his face. He had lost his family to a Coalition purge 10 years ago. "The coordinates are in the outer rim," Hana said, projecting a star map from her stolen tablet. Jiwoo said it was important. He said the truth was there. "The truth is that we're hunted animals," Kyung-soo spat. "Going to some ancient ruins won't change that." "But what if it could?" Taemin spoke up. "I've been thinking about something. You know how I can fix things? Things that trained engineers can't figure out? What if it's not just talent? What if it's something in our blood? Something we inherited? The room fell silent. Every human there had noticed it. Small things. The way they could understand technology intuitively. The way their minds worked differently. They had always assumed it was just survival adaptation, learning to think fast or die. But what if it was genetic memory? I'm going, Hana said firmly. Anyone who wants to come is welcome. Kyung-soo stared at her for a long moment, then nodded. Fine, but we do this carefully. No unnecessary risks. Dae-ho knew he was being watched. Coalition intelligence had visited his apartment twice. They asked polite questions but made their message clear. Stop investigating. Stop translating. Forget what he had seen. But he couldn't. Every symbol he translated revealed more impossibilities. The structure was over 5,000 years old. It had power generation systems that could run for millennia without maintenance. It had data storage capacity that exceeded the entire coalition's combined archives. And everywhere the same word appeared. Human, humanity, Homo sapiens. They had 100 names for themselves written in 100 different scripts, but they were all the same species. The species that supposedly went extinct from their own violence. Except the record said something different. They spoke of protected species and guided civilizations. They mentioned the 7 founding races of the coalition by name, but in a strange context. Not as equals, as children. As students, Dae-ho saved everything to a secure network, then sent copies to trusted colleagues across the galaxy. If the government tried to bury this, the truth would survive. He owed that much to history. Hana's ship lifted off from Haven's Edge in the middle of the night. It was a small cargo vessel, barely spaceworthy, but it was all they could afford. 6 humans made the journey, including her brother and Kyung-soo. They traveled in silence, each lost in their thoughts. The coordinates led them to the same dead planet where Dae-ho had made his discovery. As they approached, coalition military vessels filled the scanners. We'll never get through, the pilot muttered. We have to try, Hana insisted. This is too important. But as they drew closer, something unexpected happened. The ancient structure on the surface came to life. Energy readings spiked across all frequencies, and a message broadcast on all channels. In a language that made Hana's blood run cold. She understood it perfectly, though she had never heard it before. Human genetic signatures detected. Welcome home, children of Earth. Authorization granted. Please proceed to Landing Bay 7. The coalition ships scrambled to intercept, but the ancient facility's defensive systems activated. Harmless but effective, they created interference that made targeting impossible. Hana's ship descended through the chaos, guided by a facility that had waited 5,000 years for humans to return. As they landed, Hana realized that everything was about to change. The galaxy thought humans were extinct. They were about to learn they were wrong. The landing bay doors closed behind them with a sound like thunder. Hana stepped out of the ship, her legs shaking. The air inside the facility was fresh, recycled through systems that had run for thousands of years without human maintenance. Lights came on as they walked, creating a path deeper into the structure. This is insane, Kyung-soo whispered. How is any of this still working? Taemin ran his hand along the wall, feeling the hum of energy beneath the metal. It's beautiful. The engineering is perfect. Everything is designed to last forever. His eyes were wide with wonder. They found Dae-ho in the central chamber, still trying to translate the symbols on the massive column. He turned as they entered, his multiple eyes widening in shock. Then he saw their faces, their unmistakable human features, and understanding dawned. You're human, he said simply. Real humans. I thought that we were extinct. Hana finished. That's what everyone thinks. It keeps us alive, mostly. Dae-ho approached slowly like he was facing something holy. Do you know what this place is? What your people were? We know what the coalition says, Kyung-soo said bitterly. That humans destroyed themselves. That we were violent and primitive. That's a lie, Dae-ho said firmly. He gestured to the symbols around them. I've spent weeks translating these records. Humans didn't destroy themselves. They built everything. The hyperspace lanes we travel? Human engineering. The communication networks connecting the galaxy? Human technology. The coalition's founding species were barely in space when humans found them. Hana felt her knees weaken. She had known humans were hunted, but this? Why would the coalition hide this? Because the truth is terrifying, Dae-ho said. Humans uplifted every species in the coalition, gave them technology, protected them, guided them, And then those species turned on their benefactors and tried to wipe them out. Before anyone could respond, young June wandered to the central column. He was only 8 years old, small even for a human child. He touched the glowing symbols and the entire facility shuddered. Warning. Administrator access detected. A voice boomed from everywhere at once. Genetic scan complete. Human DNA confirmed. Administrator class. Unlimited access granted. The column exploded with light. Holographic displays filled the air around them, showing star maps, technical readouts, and historical records. A face appeared before them, projected in 3 dimensions. It looked human, but its eyes held an ancient intelligence. "I am Custodian 7, the face said. "I have waited 5,247 years for a human administrator to return." "What are your orders?" Everyone stared in silence. Finally, Hana found her voice. "Show us what happened. Show us the truth." The hologram shifted, showing images from the past. Humans spreading across the stars, building great cities. They found other species, primitive and struggling. Instead of conquering, humans helped. They shared technology carefully, teaching rather than giving. They protected younger species from threats, guided them toward space travel, and watched them grow. Humanity followed the Shepherd Protocol, Custodian 7 explained. Never conquer. Never dominate. Guide and protect, then step back when the children are ready to walk alone. The images changed, showing meetings between human leaders and representatives from 7 other species. The founding races of the Coalition, but this was thousands of years before the Coalition existed. They looked different then, younger somehow, less advanced. For 8 centuries, humanity served as guardians, the Custodian continued. But guardianship breeds resentment. The protected species grew strong, and some began to see their protectors as obstacles. A secret council formed, calling themselves the Accord. They believed humanity held too much power, controlled too much technology. They saw protection as oppression. The hologram showed the Betrayal, coordinated attacks across hundreds of human worlds, ships appearing without warning, weapons designed specifically to counter human defenses. Billions died in the first week. Humanity's defensive military, designed only to protect against external threats, was overwhelmed by attacks from within. Human doctrine prohibited preemptive warfare, Custodian 7 said, its voice heavy with something like grief. Even as the Accord prepared their attack, human leaders refused to strike first. They believed until the very end that peace could be maintained through dialogue. Hana watched humans die on the holographic display, worlds burning, ships exploding, families running from soldiers who had once been friends. And through it all, human forces fought defensively, never launching counterattacks against civilian populations. They refused to become monsters even as they faced extinction. The fall took 3 years, the Custodian explained. Humanity had the technology to win, but winning would have required genocide of the rebelling species. So humans chose to lose instead. They scattered, hid, and hoped their children might survive. The hologram faded, leaving them in silence. Taemin was crying. Kyungsu's face was frozen in rage. Daeho looked like his world had shattered. "Why are you telling us this now?" Hana asked. "Because you activated me," Custodian 7 replied. "And because there are 473 other facilities like this one, scattered across the galaxy. All waiting for humans to return, all protected by security that only human DNA can bypass." Kyungsu stepped forward, his fists clenched. "Can they build weapons? Can they build ships?" "They can build anything humanity ever designed," the Custodian confirmed, including weapons platforms capable of sterilizing entire star systems. "But I must warn you, such actions would violate the Shepherd Protocol. The facilities were designed for defense and rebuilding, not conquest." "Defense," Kyungsu laughed bitterly. "We need to defend ourselves from extinction. Then I can help," the Custodian said. "But revenge is not defense." Elsewhere in the galaxy, Coalition Security Director Bora reviewed reports in her darkened office. The human presence at the ancient facility had been confirmed. Worse, they had activated it. Intelligence suggested the facility had recognized human genetic markers and granted them access to restricted systems. This was her nightmare scenario. She had spent her entire career burying the truth about the fall, eliminating evidence and hunting down the last humans. If humans accessed the old technology, everything would fall apart. The Coalition's power rested on technologies they had stolen and barely understood. If humans reclaimed their inheritance, the power structure of the entire galaxy would collapse. She activated her secured communications. Initiate Protocol Black. All human signatures are now priority targets for immediate elimination. Use any means necessary. On a core world called Sanctuary Prime, Coalition Intelligence Officer Yoonji reviewed the same reports. But unlike her director, doubt gnawed at her. She had been taught that humans were extinct, destroyed by their own violence. But the ancient facility suggested something different. She began digging through classified archives using her security clearance to access files that most people didn't know existed. What she found made her sick. Edited historical records, fabricated evidence of human aggression, internal memos discussing how to maintain the human extinction narrative, and buried deepest of all, testimony from her own species' historical council. Her ancestors had opposed the Accord's plan. They had argued for peace, for coexistence. They had been silenced, their objections erased from history. Yoonji made a decision that would change her life. She copied everything to a secure data chip and began planning her defection. If humans were being hunted based on lies, she couldn't remain silent. Back at the facility, June touched another panel and a new hologram appeared. This one showed a star map with hundreds of points highlighted in blue. What are those? Hana asked. Seedbanks, Custodian 7 replied. Facilities containing genetic material and consciousness uploads from millions of humans. If activated, the human population could be restored from thousands to billions within a generation. The implications hung in the air like a weight. Humanity wasn't just survived. It could be reborn. But such an action would force the Coalition's hand. They would have no choice but to respond with everything they had. We need to be careful, Daeho said. If the Coalition learns about this, they'll panic. Panicked governments do terrible things. They're already doing terrible things, Kyung-soo shot back. They've been hunting us for centuries. Hana stood between them. We need time. Time to think, to plan. We can't just rush into this. She turned to the custodian. Can you contact the other facilities? Wake them up slowly? Yes, the custodian replied. But know this. Once awakened, they cannot be put back to sleep. The ancient protocols will begin broadcasting on encrypted channels. Every hidden human in the galaxy will hear the call. The question is not if the Coalition will discover your return, but when. Hana looked at her brother, at Kyung-soo, at the others who had followed her here. They were tired, hunted, barely surviving. But in their eyes she saw something new. Hope. Dangerous, fragile hope. Then we better be ready when they come. The message spread like fire across the galaxy. Hidden human communities that had lived in silence for generations suddenly heard a voice they never thought they would hear again. Ancient communication networks, dormant for thousands of years, came alive. Encrypted channels that used quantum entanglement, impossible to intercept or trace, connected humans across every corner of known space. Children of Earth, the message said in a language that lived in their blood, the time of hiding is over. The facilities are awakening. Come home. On a mining station in the Outer Rim, a human woman named Sang-woo heard the call and smiled. She had been planning for this moment her entire life. Within hours, she broadcast her own message, her face appearing on screens across human networks. Brothers and sisters, she said, her voice strong and clear. For too long we have crawled in shadows begging for the right to exist. No more, our ancestors built this galaxy. They gave these species everything they have. It's time we took back what is ours. Her words ignited a flame. On a dozen worlds, humans emerged from hiding. Some peacefully declared themselves, demanding recognition. Others seized Coalition assets, claiming legal ownership based on ancient treaties that predated the Coalition itself. And a few, driven by centuries of pain and loss, struck back violently against those who had hunted them. The galaxy erupted in chaos. Director Bora watched the reports flood in, her face calm despite the panic around her. She had known this day might come. That's why Protocol Black existed. She activated her most trusted operatives, Black Ops teams that officially didn't exist. The targets are no longer just hiding, she told them via secured channels. They're organizing. They're accessing ancient technology. If we don't stop them now, in a year they'll have ships. In 5 years they'll have armies. In 10 years they'll have everything. She paused, letting that sink in. Kill them all. Every signature, every genetic trace. Blame it on terrorists, on accidents, on anything, but make them extinct. For real this time. Hana's group moved quickly, traveling to other facilities marked on the ancient star maps. Each one they activated revealed more of humanity's lost empire. Research stations filled with technologies the Coalition had never imagined. Shipyards in dark nebulae where automated systems began constructing vessels using designs 5,000 years old. Weapons platforms hidden in dead zones, their terrible power waiting for authorization codes only humans could provide. At each facility, they found the same message. Emergency Protocol Omega. If activated, the inheritors have failed. You have permission to reclaim by any means necessary. Reclaim by any means necessary, Kyung-soo read aloud. He looked at Hana. Do you understand what that means? They're giving us permission to take it all back, by force if needed. I know what it means, Hana said quietly. The question is whether we should. Taemin worked at a console nearby, his fingers moving across holographic controls with increasing confidence. Each facility he accessed taught him more. It wasn't just skill anymore. He could feel the technology responding to him, like it recognized something in his blood. Genetic memory, the custodians called it. Human DNA carried echoes of ancestral knowledge, fragments of understanding passed down through generations. I've found something, he said, his voice tight. There's a facility in the Chronos Void. It's massive. Some kind of automated construction yard. He pulled up the specifications and everyone went silent. The facility could build warships, not small patrol craft, but dreadnoughts that would make Coalition capital ships look like toys. The designs incorporated technologies that shouldn't exist. Shields that bent space itself. Weapons that could crack planets, engines that could cross the galaxy in weeks instead of months. How many could it build? Kyung-soo asked. According to these files, it was designed for rapid response, Taemin replied. It could produce one completed warship every 8 days. It's been waiting for authorization for 5,000 years. The moment we activate it, construction begins automatically. Daeho, who had been translating ancient records, looked up from his work. You can't do this. If you activate that facility, the Coalition will have no choice. They'll throw everything at you. Billions will die. Billions of humans already died, Kyung-soo shot back. Where was the Coalition's mercy then? While they argued, a new arrival changed everything. Yoonji's ship landed at the facility, broadcasting human identification codes she had stolen from classified files. When she emerged, Kyung-soo's people immediately trained weapons on her. Wait, Hana shouted. She's not military. She's Coalition, Kyung-soo spat. That's enough, Yoonji raised her hand slowly. I'm here to defect. I have information you need. The Coalition is planning something called Protocol Black. They're not trying to capture you anymore. They're trying to wipe you out completely. She told them everything she had learned. The edited histories, the fabricated evidence, the secret operations that had been hunting humans for centuries. And worst of all, the current plan. Biological weapons designed to target human-specific genetic markers. Several communities had already been attacked. Hundreds dead, maybe thousands. How do we stop it? Hana demanded. You can't, Yoonji said. Not with a few hundred humans hiding in old facilities. But if you had ships, weapons, a real presence, then maybe the Coalition would be forced to negotiate instead of exterminate. Elsewhere in the galaxy, a human scientist named Hyun Woo escaped from a Coalition research laboratory. He had been working undercover for years, pretending to be studying ancient artifacts while actually learning the Coalition's secrets. What he discovered made him risk everything to get the information out. He found Sang-woo's growing movement and shared what he knew. The Coalition had been trying to splice human DNA into other species, stealing humanity's genetic advantages. Some experiments had produced hybrids with unpredictable abilities. Worse, they had created synthetic beings using human neural patterns, artificial intelligences that thought they were human, but followed Coalition programming. They're making copies of us, Hyun-woo explained to the assembled resistance leaders. Fake humans who will do what we won't. If they perfect the process, they won't need real humans anymore. They can create controllable versions. The revelation sent shockwaves through the human community. It wasn't enough that they were being hunted. Now they were being replaced. Sang-woo's response was immediate and fierce. Then we show them why copies can never match the original. Activate the Chronos facility. Start building ships. Let the Coalition see what real human engineering looks like. But not everyone agreed. On a hidden colony called New Hope, A gathering of human elders met to discuss the crisis. Among them was Young Su, who at 70 was considered young for the group. He argued passionately against military escalation. "If we become conquerors, we betray everything our ancestors stood for," he said. "Yes, we were betrayed. Yes, we were nearly destroyed. But responding with violence makes us the monsters the coalition claimed we were." "What do you suggest?" someone asked bitterly. "That we forgive them?" "I suggest we be better," Young Su replied. "Our ancestors had the power to dominate the galaxy. They chose not to. That choice is why I'm proud to be human. If we abandon that principle now, what are we fighting for?" The debate raged across all human networks. Some sided with Sang-woo, believing only strength would ensure survival. Others agreed with Young Su, arguing that becoming oppressors would make their victory meaningless. Hana found herself somewhere in the middle, understanding both positions but certain neither was completely right. Then Young Jun, exploring yet another facility, made a discovery that changed everything. Deep in an archive protected by multiple security layers, he found records of the seedbanks. Not just the locations, but the full specifications. The facilities contained frozen genetic material, yes, but also something more precious: consciousness uploads. Millions of humans had uploaded their minds before the fall, hoping to be restored someday. "They're not dead," June said, his child's voice filled with wonder. "All those people. They're sleeping, waiting. We could bring them back?" Taemin studied the specifications carefully. "It would take enormous amounts of energy. We'd need to control multiple star systems to generate enough power." He looked up, realization dawning. "And we could do it. The ancient technology includes stellar engineering. We could harness entire stars. The implications were staggering. If humans demonstrated that capability, the coalition would have no choice but to respond. But if they didn't, millions of humans would remain trapped in digital sleep, their chance at life denied." Hana made a decision. "We activate the Kronos facility, but we don't build weapons first. We build one ship, just one. We fill it with every human who wants to come, and we demonstrate what we can do. We show the coalition that we could rebuild our empire if we wanted to, and then we offer peace." "They'll never accept," Kyung-soo argued. "Maybe not," Hana agreed. "But we have to try, because if we don't, we're no better than they are." The vote was close, but Hana's plan won. They would activate Kronos, build one ship, and use it to force negotiations rather than war. It was a gamble that could cost everything. But as Young-soo said, some things were worth the risk. The Kronos Void was a region of space where stars went to die. Ancient nebulae thick with radiation made sensors useless. Nothing lived here. Nothing except the massive facility that hung in the darkness like a sleeping giant. When Hana's ships arrived, the facility came alive. Construction bays that had been silent for 5 millennia opened like mechanical flowers. Automated systems performed diagnostics, running through countless checks in seconds. And deep within the structure, something stirred. A woman emerged from a cryogenic pod, gasping for air as ancient revival systems flooded her body with oxygen. Her name was Yuna, and the last thing she remembered was saying goodbye to her daughter before entering sleep. That had been 5,000 years ago. "Status report," she croaked, her captain's instincts overriding confusion. "Captain Yuna. Correct genetic identification confirmed," a synthetic voice replied. "You have been in stasis for 5,192 years. Current human population, estimated at fewer than 50,000 across the galaxy. Civilization status, near extinction. Emergency Protocol Omega is active. Yuna's training kept her calm despite the horror. Show me." The briefing took 2 hours. She watched recordings of the fall, saw her civilization burn, learned how humanity had been hunted nearly to extinction. By the end, tears streamed down her face, but her voice remained steady. "What are my orders?" she asked. "You are the ranking military officer," the computer replied. "The decision is yours." Yuna stood, her body still adjusting to being awake. "Then my first order is this. Activate construction protocols. I want one ship. The biggest, most advanced warship in our database, and I want it finished in 30 days. The facility began to hum with energy as massive construction arms moved into position. Raw materials harvested from the void itself fed into atomic assemblers. The ship took shape layer by layer, each component built to specifications that made modern coalition technology look primitive. Meanwhile, Across the galaxy, the situation deteriorated. Sangwoo's movement grew more militant by the day. Humans began seizing coalition assets, backing their claims with ancient legal documents that predated modern governments. When coalition forces tried to intervene, they found themselves facing humans who had accessed ancient weapons caches. The skirmishes were small but bloody. On the core world of Sentress Prime, Coalition Council member Wu Jin watched the reports with growing horror. He was a moderate, a voice for reason in a government increasingly driven by fear. He began reaching out to other moderates across species lines, forming what he called the Reconciliation Coalition. "We can't win a war with humans," he argued in closed-door meetings. "If they access even a fraction of their old technology, we're finished. But more importantly, we shouldn't try. What was done to them was genocide. We need to acknowledge that and make amends." His words found support among some species, particularly those whose ancestors had opposed the accord. But the hardliners, led by Director Bora, shouted him down. "If we show weakness, they'll destroy us," Bora argued. "Humans are dangerous. That's why they were eliminated in the first place. We must finish what our ancestors started." She launched Operation Final Cleansing without council approval. Black Ops teams deployed biological weapons on 3 human colonies. Thousands died in hours, their bodies betraying them as the engineered virus attacked human-specific genetic markers. The news reached Hana while she was coordinating with resistance cells across the galaxy. She watched footage of children dying, their parents helpless as the invisible killer swept through communities. Among the dead was one of the elders from New Hope. Youngsu had been visiting family when the attack came. Kyungsu's response was immediate. "No more waiting. We strike back. We hit them so hard they'll never forget." But Hana grabbed his arm. "If we escalate now, billions die. We need to be smarter." That's when Hyunwoo arrived with a solution. His research team had developed countermeasures to the biological weapons, using ancient human medical technology. They could protect the remaining human communities. But more importantly, they could prove who had launched the attacks. The bioweapons had molecular signatures that traced back to specific coalition labs. "We don't just defend," Hana said, a plan forming in her mind. "We expose them. We show the galaxy what's really happening." Enter So-hyun, a human philosopher who had been living undercover on an academic world. She had spent decades studying coalition cultures, understanding their values and fears. When Hana's call went out for thinkers, not just fighters, So-hyun answered. "The coalition is not a monolith," So-hyun explained to the assembled human leaders. "Many species genuinely don't know what happened. They believe the propaganda. If we show them the truth, we can divide them, make it politically impossible for the hardliners to continue the genocide." She proposed something radical, a public trial. Broadcast across every channel, presenting evidence of both historical and current crimes, force the galaxy to confront what had been done in their name. "They'll never allow it," Sangwoo scoffed. "They won't have a choice," So-hyun replied. "Not if we have the military power to demand it." As if on cue, news arrived from the Chronos Void. The ship was complete. They called it the Defiant Dawn, and it was magnificent. 3 kilometers long, armed with weapons that could level cities, protected by shields that bent the fabric of space. It was a vessel designed to fight entire fleets alone and win. Captain Yuna took command, and her first order surprised everyone. "We're not attacking anyone. We're going to position ourselves in orbit around Sentress Prime, the coalition capital, and we're going to sit there. Peacefully. Let them see what we could do if we wanted to." The Defiant Dawn emerged from hyperspace above the most populated world in the galaxy. Every sensor in the system locked onto it immediately. Coalition military vessels scrambled to respond, but they moved cautiously. The ship's power readings were off the scale. Its weapons could sterilize the entire planet in minutes, but the ship just sat there broadcasting a simple message. "We request to speak with the Coalition Council. We have evidence of crimes that must be addressed. We are prepared to share this evidence publicly if our request is denied." The galaxy held its breath. Director Bora moved immediately to have the ship destroyed, but Wu Jin and his moderates blocked her. "If we fire first, we prove everything the humans claim about us," he argued. "Let them present their evidence. If it's false, we can refute it. If it's true, we need to know." The debate raged for 3 days. During that time, more human ships emerged from hidden facilities. Not warships, but civilian vessels filled with refugees who had been in hiding. They gathered around the defiant dawn, a growing fleet of survivors bearing witness. On the fourth day, June made another discovery. Deep in the ancient archives, he found detailed records of the consciousness uploads. Among them were political leaders, scientists, artists, and ordinary people who had hoped to wake to a better world. But one upload stood out, a complete record of the trial of the Accord conspirators. Before the fall, humanity had captured several conspirators and put them on trial. The proceedings had been recorded in perfect detail, including confessions, evidence of planning, and debates about whether humans should respond with force. The record showed human leaders choosing mercy over vengeance even as they knew it meant their doom. "This changes everything," Deho said, studying the files. "These aren't just human claims. These are confessions from the conspirators themselves. Documented proof of genocide. Hana knew what they had to do. Broadcast it, all of it. Every confession, every piece of evidence, every moment of the trial. Let the galaxy judge." The transmission began at dawn on Sentress Prime. Billions of beings across thousands of worlds watched as the truth unfolded. They saw coalition founders, young and primitive, being uplifted by humans. They saw centuries of cooperation. And then they saw the betrayal, planned in secret by leaders who feared human power more than they valued human friendship. The confessions were damning. "We knew they would not strike first," one conspirator admitted. "Their principles made them weak. We used that weakness to destroy them." The footage showed human worlds burning. It showed coalition forces hunting refugees. It showed children hiding while soldiers killed their parents. And through it all, it showed human forces fighting defensively, never launching counterattacks against civilian populations. "They could have destroyed us," another conspirator confessed. "They had weapons that could crack our worlds. But they chose to die rather than become monsters. I do not know if that makes them heroes or fools." The galaxy watched in silence. And in that silence, something shifted. On core worlds and frontier colonies, protests erupted. Citizens demanded answers from their governments. How much of their history was lies? How many humans had been killed in their names? Director Bora, sensing her control slipping, made a desperate move. She ordered a full military strike against the Defiant Dawn and all human vessels. A fleet of 300 coalition warships converged on Sentress Prime. Captain Yuna watched them come, her face calm. She had been trained for this moment her entire life, back when humanity still had an empire to defend. Her orders had been clear then and remained clear now. Protect all sentient life, even your enemies. The galaxy stood at a crossroads. In the weeks following the battle at Sentress Prime, the coalition fractured into 3 distinct camps. The Old Guard, led by Director Bora and her allies, insisted that humans remained a threat that must be eliminated. The Reformists, gathered around Wu Jin, demanded accountability for historical and current crimes. And the Neutrals, the largest group, wanted desperately to pretend none of this was happening and return to normal life. But normal was impossible now. Humans were no longer invisible victims hiding in shadows. They had ships, weapons, and most importantly, the truth on their side. The question that consumed every government, every news broadcast, every dinner table conversation was simple. What happens next? Sang Wu wanted war. Her movement had swelled to thousands, and many of them were angry young people who had grown up hunted and afraid. They looked at the Defiant Dawn and saw justice. They looked at the disabled coalition fleet and saw weakness that should be exploited. "We have them on their knees," she argued in a broadcast that reached every human community. "This is our chance. We take back what was stolen. We make them pay for what they did." Her words found eager ears. On a dozen worlds, human resistance cells seized coalition facilities. A mining station, a research lab, a communication hub. Each one taken with minimal violence. Each one claimed under ancient human property rights. But each one also pushed the galaxy closer to total war. Minister Wu Jin worked desperately to prevent catastrophe. He formed an emergency council of moderate voices from all coalition species, people who recognized that their governments had committed terrible crimes and wanted to make amends. They proposed what they called the Reconciliation Tribunal. Let both sides present their evidence, Wu Jin argued before the Coalition Council. Let historians, not politicians, determine the truth, and let us face whatever judgment comes with honesty and courage. The proposal met fierce resistance. Bora and her allies saw it as weakness, as surrendering to human demands. They attempted a vote of no confidence in Wu Jin, trying to remove him from power. The vote failed, barely, but it showed how divided the coalition had become. While politicians argued, a human historian named Minho began documenting everything. He traveled to battle sites, interviewed survivors from both sides, and compiled evidence with meticulous care. His goal was simple but profound: ensure that whatever happened, the truth would survive. No more edited records, no more convenient lies. Future generations would know exactly what had transpired and why. History is written by those who record it, he told Hana during one of their meetings. I'm going to record everything, even the parts that make us look bad, because if we hide our flaws, we become like them. Among humans, a different voice emerged to challenge Sang-Woo's militancy. Young Su, who had survived the biological weapon attack through sheer luck, became an advocate for what he called principled resistance. Our ancestors had the power to rule the galaxy, he said in broadcasts that reached human communities across space. They chose not to because domination through fear is tyranny. If we seize control now through force, we betray everything they stood for. We must be better than our pain. The debate raged across human networks. Young people who had grown up hunted mostly sided with Sang-Woo. Older humans who remembered the stories of who they had been leaned toward Young Su's position. Hana found herself caught in the middle, understanding both perspectives, but certain there had to be another way. Then young Jun, still exploring ancient facilities with the enthusiasm only a child could maintain, made a discovery that changed the entire conversation. He found the activation protocols for the seedbanks, the facilities containing consciousness uploads of millions of humans. But more importantly, he found something his older companions had missed, a message from those uploaded minds themselves. We are not dead, the message said. We are waiting. But we will only wake to a world worth living in. If you restore us to continue a cycle of violence and hatred, leave us sleeping. We choose oblivion over becoming monsters. The message hit human communities like a thunderbolt. Sang-Woo's argument had always been about restoring humanity, bringing back their lost population. But the very people she claimed to fight for were saying they would rather stay dead than wake to a galaxy at war. Tai Min, working with the ancient technology every day, achieved something remarkable. He successfully reverse-engineered the stellar engineering systems, the technology to harness entire stars, to generate power on scales that dwarfed anything the Coalition could imagine. He demonstrated it by building a small ring world around a red dwarf star, completing in 6 weeks what should have taken decades. The construction was live-streamed across the galaxy. Billions watched automated systems work in perfect coordination, building a habitat that could house millions. The message was clear. Humans could rebuild their empire within years if they chose to. They had the technology. They had the knowledge. All they lacked was the will. This is what humans can do, Hana broadcast as the ring world neared completion. We can build wonders. We can harness stars. We could recreate our ancient empire within a generation. But we're choosing not to. Not because we're weak, but because we're strong enough to choose mercy over revenge. Director Bora, watching her influence crumble, made a final desperate play. She assembled loyalist forces, ships, and soldiers who believed in the old narrative that humans were too dangerous to live. They launched a coordinated strike against human facilities across the Outer Rim, hoping to destroy the seedbanks before they could be activated. It was a mistake. Captain Yuna's fleet, now grown to 12 ships as more facilities came online, intercepted the attack. The battle that followed was brief and devastating. Human vessels, following their defensive doctrine, disabled every attacking ship without destroying a single one. But this time, they went further. They captured several command ships and brought their crews before cameras. Why? Yuna asked a captured Coalition admiral, broadcasting the interrogation galaxy-wide. Why do you keep trying to kill us? The Admiral, an old soldier who had spent his life believing he protected the galaxy, struggled to answer. Because, he finally said, we were told you were dangerous. That you would enslave us if you returned. Look around you, Una said quietly. We have defeated every fleet you've sent. We could have destroyed your worlds. Instead, we captured you, and we're going to let you go home. Does that seem like the behavior of conquerors? The Admiral had no answer. The failed attack broke something in the Coalition's hardline faction. Public opinion, already shifting, turned decisively against them. Protests erupted on core worlds, demanding Bora's resignation and prosecution. Several Coalition species formally apologized to humanity and offered reparations. Wu Jin seized the moment. He proposed what he called the concordat, a new agreement that would reshape galactic civilization. The negotiations took place aboard the Defiant Dawn, neutral territory that symbolized humanity's power, but also their restraint. Hana led the human delegation, supported by Youngsu, Sohyun, and representatives from human communities across the galaxy. Sang-woo attended too, her militant faction given voice, but not control. The Coalition brought Wu Jin and moderates from each member species. Bora was notably absent, having been forced to resign after evidence emerged of her role in the biological weapon attacks. For 6 weeks, they negotiated. The discussions were heated, emotional, and often painful. Coalition representatives had, to confront the full scope of what their ancestors had done, human delegates had to balance justice with pragmatism, knowing that demanding too much would restart the cycle of violence. A small human child named Jia, barely a year old, became an unexpected symbol of the negotiations. She was the daughter of 2 resistance fighters born in hiding during the darkest days. Her parents brought her to the meetings, and she would crawl around the conference room, babbling happily while adults debated the fate of civilizations. She's why we're here, Youngsu said during one particularly difficult session. Not for revenge, for her, so she can grow up in a galaxy where no one hunts her for being human. The concordat that emerged was imperfect, but historic. Its key provisions included human sovereign worlds, fully independent but part of the Coalition as equal members. Humans would have representation in Coalition government proportional to their population. Technology sharing agreements, allowing human innovations to benefit all species while ensuring humans retained control over the most powerful technologies. Stellar engineering, consciousness upload, and certain weapon systems would remain human exclusive for at least a century. Truth and Reconciliation Commissions would document the fall and current crimes. Those responsible for recent attacks would face justice. Historical crimes would be acknowledged but not prosecuted, recognizing that punishing descendants for ancestral sins served no one. The seedbanks would be activated gradually, over 50 years. The human population would grow from thousands to millions, then eventually billions, but slowly enough that the galaxy could adapt. Joint exploration fleets would map the remaining ancient facilities, with mixed human Coalition crews ensuring trust and cooperation.